I think on that trip I definitely fell off my bike a few times, just being scratched up at the end from bike rides and just being in the wilderness. Yeah, I remember that and just sort of going out there and just pedaling away, and yeah, I remember that and being like, that's a big bike.
Welcome to Tell Me About Your Bike, the podcast about the meaning of life, the universe, and bicycling. I'm your host, Wesley Cheney. In this episode, I talk with someone near and dear to my heart, my daughter, Abigail Vello Cheney. I recorded this interview as we were driving up to Thanksgiving dinner. I asked Abby about growing up in a baby trailer and her first memories of biking and why she named her bike Trixie. If you enjoy Tell Me About Your Bike, hit the share button in your podcast app and send it to a friend, or post a link on Facebook. If you know someone who rides a bike to work, invite them to listen to Tell Me About Your Bike. I want to get hundreds and thousands of people listening to this podcast. So please rate and review Tell Me About Your Bike wherever you listen to podcasts. It will help more people hear about this show. So listen now to another episode of Tell Me About Your Bike.
So, tell me, Abby, what did you have for breakfast?
I did not have breakfast. I had a brunch of Reese's, Buttercups, and a little bit of root beer at school.
A brunch of Reese's Peanut Butter Cups and root beer at school.
Yeah, nutritious. I know.
That's okay. Hey, can you hit volume down on the side of the iPhone a little bit? So you skipped breakfast this morning?
Yeah, I was running late for the bus stop, so.
Oh, okay. And what class did you have this morning?
This morning I had Latin, but I had to go to the office to go find out about the presidential election. Now,
is that the U.S. presidential election?
No, that's my school presidential election. So I found out whether or not, which candidates won and stuff. And so I found out that I won, but I couldn't tell anyone. So that was a little depressing, but it was nice to know and, sort of secretly tell people, just, nod my head if they're like, did you win? Because I can't say anything, but, I could still. I always use the excuse to Jasmine, I can still, shake my head or something.
Gotcha.
So, yeah.
And so this is your for your 8th grade class?
No, this is for the whole school. So this is a school-wide thing. So this is for young scholars, AYS, and the special ed department.
And AYS is?
AYS is the Academy of International Studies. And so there, our sister program, Young Scholars, is the Gifted Learning program that I'm in.
And at which school is this?
This is at the Academy of International Studies at Rosemont. Used to be Meadowbrook.
And that's Rosemont is in Norfolk, Virginia. Okay. No, there's several Norfolks, so
Yeah, there are.
Several different Norfolks. So you're now the president for the whole student body. Yeah. That is pretty cool. So this is for my podcast, Tell Me About Your Bike. And so it's an opportunity for me to talk to people about life, the universe, and bicycles and the meaning of life. So wanted to ask a few questions about your experiences with bicycles growing up, but just to start with, tell me about your bike, Abby. What kind of bike are you riding right now?
I'm riding an Electra. I'm not sure what model it is. It's a nice seafoam green though, and I like to think that if my bike could talk, it would sound like a posh old English woman, and their name is Trixie.
So how would Trixie say that she's going to the store for tea?
think she's too dignified for that.
For tea?
No, I think she wouldn't go to the store. In my opinion, I like have this whole persona made that like she's just living her best life as a old British woman, and she just like will not talk about doing anything but just like being an old British woman.
Okay. So where does tell me, Trixie, what's your favorite destination on your bike? Where do you like to ride your bike, Trixie?
I don't ride it many places. I've only had it for a while, but I really enjoy riding through the neighborhood. The bike isn't really made for trails and stuff, so it's nice to just ride through the neighborhood. And I enjoy riding to piano lessons with it.
And that's just in the neighborhood too, right?
Yeah, that's just right up the street.
Okay.
So I haven't gone very long distance.
But it's got what? It's got gears on it?
Yep. 5 gear settings.
Okay.
5 gear on the front. I think 6 or 7 on the back. Wait, no. 5 for both. Yeah, 5 for both.
Okay. And it's got skinnier wheels, you said?
Yes.
Okay, so it's not like a super fast bike, but it's also not a really slow mountain bike.
No.
Or a beach cruiser.
No.
Okay, all right. And how long have you had Trixie?
I think it's been about July, August, September, October, November. It's been about 5 months.
Okay.
So it hasn't been very long, but it feels like it's been forever.
Well, but it was a beautiful. And were you able to bring Trixie with you up to Camp Chanko and Lake Gaston?
Yeah, I was. I didn't do much riding personally. I mean, both are places I like to just walk. But I brought her on many adventures, and I've ridden her not as much on those adventures, but she's definitely a nice bike for just nice casual rides.
Right.
More rural areas and stuff.
So well, it sounds like a great neighborhood bike. I mean, it's a good bike for riding to the rec center or riding to piano lessons or.
Yeah, that's what I need.
Yeah, well, that's really important, and that's a good thing. What was your bike like before Trixie?
My bike before Trixie was a bike my grandparents gave me in the summer of 2016 when I was visited with them in North Carolina. And my brother and I both got bikes from them that they had gotten somewhere up in Vermont, and they'd fixed up some. And it was a blue bike. I forget what the brand was. And that one, I definitely took on a lot more adventures. Yeah, that one was it. It was more or less. It was less of a like ride around the neighborhood bike, but it was not really a adventure bike.
Yeah. So Trixie, that Electra that you're riding, a lot of people would call that a city bike or a Dutch bike. So it's not made for riding on trails or anything. But then the one that your grandparents gave you, a lot of people would refer to it as a hybrid bike because it's got tires that are just as tall as Trixie's, but they're a little bit wider and they had a little bit of knobby grip on them. And so you could, in theory, you could ride some light trails on it, but it wouldn't be the most comfortable bike. But it did okay for you for a couple of years. You and I and Kelvin did some gravel road rides in Central Virginia, I think, on it at one point.
Yeah. For the year I had it, I think I did I did a few trails with you guys. Central when we went up to near Charlottesville last September. I remember. Yeah, we did some trails with that, some more gravel ones, and then we did the trail that was in the woods, and I got scratched up in that. But,
Yeah, you took your front wheel didn't have a lot of traction, and you slid out on some wet leaves on a descending trail. It turned out to be a little more technical than we initially thought, because at first it was really gentle, and I was like, oh, it's just wide grass and we're good to go. And yeah, you were a trooper.
I think on that trip I definitely fell off my bike a few times. I remember just like cutting, like just being scratched up at the end from bike rides and just being in the wilderness.
Yeah, I think you might have hit some greenbrier at one point too, if I remember correctly. Yeah, that was a good bike. But now, how did that bike compare to when you borrowed Liz Sleeper's mountain bike? What were the differences?
Well, Liz's, it had in the front, it had the springs, so I could like go over stuff, and it was more of like a trail bike.
Yeah.
I didn't enjoy the trail bike as much. I enjoyed the one that I had, just because like it just felt more like I knew that bike and how it worked and stuff.
Yeah, that makes sense.
I just find comfort in like consistency.
Right.
So the new bike, it was interesting, but I still liked my other one.
Well, that's okay.
Yeah.
Nothing wrong with that. I mean, it's good to have a bike that you enjoy and a bike that you know, and it can be kind of scary when you're getting on a new bike and you don't know how it's going to handle, and it's doing things that you're not used to, and that's a totally different thing. So, yeah, I don't blame you. But did you like riding trails? Was that something that you'd like to do more, or is that something that doesn't appeal to you as much?
I think trail riding, it's not really for me. I like it, but I like to do it at my own pace, and usually I'm with you and Kelvin, and you guys are like, let's go, go, go.
Right.
And I'm more like, I want to look at the tree, I want to look at the flower. So I enjoy it, but I don't enjoy it as much as you two.
Interesting. Yeah, because I've often wondered if you're getting the same joy out of it. And I think sometimes Kelvin and I are riding at a faster pace, and a lot of the enjoyment for us comes from the fact that we're riding at a faster pace.
Yeah.
That's an exciting end in and of itself. And I'll be honest, when I go out on a trail, if I had a choice between riding the trail and walking it, and 9 times out of 10 I would choose to ride it, because I get bored when I'm just walking the trail. The scenery isn't changing fast enough for me, and it's not interesting. But I also don't like to go at the same speed as a car, because I find when I'm traveling at faster than 20 or 30 miles an hour, I'm missing details. And the speed of a bike seems to be about the speed of my attention span. So it kind of matches.
Yeah, I just learned that like I like just admiring the nature, and just looking around and being like, this is just so beautiful. And then Kelvin and you are just like running around in the mud and like going on all these like big like jumps and stuff. And
Right.
I mean, I find joy in that sometimes, but also like usually that's just not like for me physically, that's really demanding, and just doing
it just doesn't appeal to you.
it just but I mean, I've found ways to just like find joy in it, and like sort of communicate like, hey, I want to do this, you guys can go have fun with this, and I'm gonna sit here and slowly walk through the trail while you guys ride through it 5 times.
And yeah, that's kind of something that we had happen when we went up to Charlottesville a couple weeks ago, and everyone went out on a big group stroll. And you were having a really good time just walking at your own pace with some of the other people. But Kelvin and I decided that we wanted, it was more interesting for us if we rode our bikes.
Yeah.
And so you were walking along with Kasha and Susie and all the other gaggle of kids and Rabbit's friends and relations who had shown up, and Kelvin and I were were riding laps. We were
Yeah, and like I feel like you guys that's your way of bonding. That's your experience that you two share.
Yeah.
And I mean, I'm sort of fine with like not doing that. And I'm just like, I feel like when I get to set my own pace, I enjoy it more.
Yeah, that makes sense. No, totally. I can get that, and I can appreciate that we have different paces on that. But I like that we're still able to get out and to have those experiences together.
Yeah.
That's pretty cool. So, all right, I'm just looking over. Traffic is now picking up. So, okay, so this is a view. We're on Interstate 64, heading towards the Hampton Roads Bridge Tunnel, and we're if we look to our left, we will see about 40 or 50 billion dollars worth of military hardware. There are not one, not two, but 3 nuclear aircraft carriers, and then looks like an amphibious assault carrier and a dozen destroyers and cruisers and frigates and supply ships and probably some submarines and aircraft and helicopters and everything over at the Norfolk Naval Station, which is just across the little bay here from the highway. So it's really weird when you think about how much military technology and killing force is over there, and how many taxpayer dollars. So, but we're heading towards the tunnel. It's the day before Thanksgiving, and we're heading up to Washington, D.C. to go spend the Thanksgiving day with our cousins up there. So, so we're on our way up, but now the road's moving, so I may not be asking as many questions because now traffic is actually flowing a little bit, which is a nice change, but we'll see how long it takes us. So, Abby, tell me about 4th of July bike parade.
All right, so I don't have many memories from it. I do remember very much that there was a man who rode this, I'm pretty sure, like, it was a very big bike, and it just was, like, obnoxiously big, and he had, like, this, like, invisible dog thing. And I just remember seeing that and being like, this dude's magic.
I'd forgotten about this guy.
Yeah, that's, like, one of the only things I remember.
Now, was he riding when you say it was in an obnoxiously large bike, was it in terms of the length or the height?
I think it was very tall. I remember like seeing. I think it was one of those bikes that had the very big front wheel and like.
Yeah, I think that would be called a penny farthing.
Okay. Yeah, I remember that and being like, "That's a big bike."
I have forgotten that he was at that. That had slipped my memory.
Yeah.
There was a penny farthing there, but I can totally see it happening. But that was the 4th of July parade in our neighborhood in Norfolk.
Yeah.
When you were about 5 years old, I think 5 and a half.
I think about 6. Yeah, 5.5, 6.
Yeah, maybe 6, maybe 6.
Yeah. Yeah, you sent me like one photo of it, and I like have vague memories in like the back of my mind of it. And it's weird, like you send me those photos, and it's like, oh my gosh, I forgot that happened. When did that happen? Where did that time go?
Oh, that's funny.
And it just like comes back, and it's like.
And what do you see in the picture that I sent you?
There's my brother and I, and I'm wearing like a red dress and some black shoes, I'm pretty sure. And I think and there's like a ribbon, I think it said like first or second. Mm-hmm. I think there was like a bike decorating contest, and we had one in some sort. And I think I was towing my brother behind me.
Yes.
Okay. Because I don't think he would have been by me for that long unless like there was some benefit to him of like transportation or something. We were not the closest at that age.
bring it back a little bit from your mouth. You're getting a
Okay.
little hot on the mic. Let's see where you are now. Yeah, that looks better. Yeah, you were. So he was 18 months old, and you were 66 months old. So. Yeah, so, and it was the 4th of July, and you won second place in the bike decorating contest, and there'd been a little bike parade and foot parade around the neighborhood, and I think you'd maybe like ridden it to the end of the block and back as part of the parade, and you were riding a little blue bike, a Walmart special kids bike, that your grandparents had bought you, and you were pulling the baby trailer, the single-seat baby trailer, and your brother was in the back of it. And I had ridden my bike next to y'all, and by the grace of God, you had not ridden into anybody, because it was the trailer and Kelvin behind you weighed just about as much as you did.
Yeah.
So it was and you did not have the greatest. You were still a very young rider. You had not developed into being a confident rider like you are now. So it was it was a little bit scary for some of the adults to watch. But you were bound and determined to do it. And
Yeah.
Kelvin was having a great time and thought he was the king of the world as his sister was dragging him around in the trailer.
Yeah.
And you had red, white, and blue crepe paper ribbons all over it, and there was probably a lot of glitter and other
Bows and stuff.
Yeah.
Just like.
yeah. Your mom went crazy at Dollar Tree buying decorations for the bike, and then the bike got left out in the rain, and so all of the paper ribbons just melted on it. And so it was really disgusting.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I have vague memories of it, but, like, it's also one of my earliest memories of being on a bike.
Is it? I was going to ask, what is your earliest memory of being on a bike? Or what are some of your earliest memories?
I remember learning how to ride a bike. I have vague memories of, like, you taking me outside in the morning.
Uh-huh.
And, like, you had, like, that weird bar thing that, like, went behind the bike.
Yeah, there was a handlebar that came up off the back of the seat post so that we could hold the bike upright for you.
Yeah, I remember that, and, like, just sort of going out there and just pedaling away, and I don't remember very much of it, but I remember just, like, going out there with you, and I remember falling some. I do remember a few falls, and just, like, it was a bright yellow handle.
Yep.
I think it was, like, a brown bike.
Yeah, that was, I had a brown bike at that point. My mountain bike was brown, and you decided you kept trying to find brown bikes to ride. And so every time you saw a brown bike, you wanted to climb up on it. So I had I found a decent kid's bike and had the frame painted, and had it painted brown, and then I put the bike together for you, and I gave it to you for Christmas on, I think you would have been 4.5 when I gave you that bike.
It would have been before Kelvin.
Yeah, so that would have been right before he was born. So
Yeah.
about 3 months before he was born. So
Yeah, I also have, like, some very vague memories of being in, like, the trailer behind you and Mom, or, like, behind either one of you, and just, like, biking around Norfolk.
mm-hmm.
Like, I have a few memories of just being in the trailer.
And what was that like, being in the trailer?
I think it was fun. I just sort of, whenever I think about biking, I think about, like, that trailer. It's just such a thing that, like, I always had in my life with biking, was that trailer. Like, whether I
funny.
was in it or Kelvin was in it,
Right.
it's just always been there.
Right. Oh, that's so cool. Yeah, that was a great trailer. It was a little, I think it was they called it the Burley Solo. It was a narrow one-seat Burley kids trailer that we would put behind the bikes.
Yeah, and then like on my Hydro Flask, like that's one of the stickers I have on there, just because it's like it just has like little adjectives on it, and it's like, well, that's true. That's what I associate with that trailer. Is like whenever like I'll see one that like looks remotely like it, it's like, oh my gosh, that's my childhood right there.
Yeah.
Just like going by.
Yeah, and when people ask me, my recommendations on trailers, I always tell them Burley's. I'm just like, we had that one trailer and it lasted us for, 8 years and 2 kids.
Little Velo by Wesley Cheney. On your first bike ride, you were bundled up in the trailer, a snug pillow behind your head, your sling at your feet, and your diaper bag behind you. You were entranced by the trees overhead as they swayed in the warm spring breeze. Nervous as only 2 first-time parents can be, your mother and I fussed as we snapped and clicked and strapped you into your baby trailer for the first time. We wanted to ride our tandem bike with you, one big, happy family. We rode down the street together, worried about every bump and crack in the pavement. Your mom kept twisting around to keep an eye on you, while I looked for the smoothest path around parked cars and road debris. You were so little that the trailer bounced high on overinflated tires when we crossed the railroad tracks. We rode alongside the water to the museum where we changed your diaper and tried to feed you a bottle of formula. But of course, you would have none of it and insisted on your mother's breast. Your rosy pediatrician had said that you could ride in the trailer as soon as you could hold your head up. From the very first day, you clung to our chests in our sling. By your 3rd month with us, you had become adept at twisting your neck to keep your eyes on whatever had caught your attention. And the view from your little trailer certainly kept your attention on your first ride, as it would for years to come. As you grew older, we biked you everywhere, from the park to preschool in that little trailer. And now you ride your own bike at your own pace. You've chosen and named your own bike, and you're riding off on your own, and I love you, little Abigail Velo. Each episode, I like to tell you about a podcast that I listen to on my bike. The Imaginary Worlds podcast has changed my life in ways that no other podcast has. It's a show about how we create imaginary worlds and why we suspend our disbelief. It has introduced and sometimes reintroduced me to phenomenal works of film, fiction, and music. The books I borrow from the library form an Imaginary Worlds reading list. Imaginary Worlds mixes fanboy sincerity and Gen X irony, yet it never takes cheap shots. It's both kind and critical. So if you're passionate about sci-fi and fantasy, if you want to talk about what it means to love a figment of imagination, then check out Imaginary Worlds. So thanks for listening to another episode of Tell Me About Your Bike. You can listen to Tell Me About Your Bike on Apple's podcast app, as well as Spotify, Google Podcasts, Stitcher, iHeartRadio, and plenty more. In the next episode of Tell Me About Your Bike, I'll be finishing up my conversation with my daughter Abigail. Please rate and review Tell Me About Your Bike on your preferred podcasting platform so that more people can hear the good news of bicycling. I want to change the world. I want to make biking as common as driving, and I can only do it with your help. If you leave your name and a detailed review, I'll be sure to mention you on a future episode. Each episode I record my own ukulele backing tracks. In the last episode, I played Something by George Harrison. With all respect to John, Paul, and Ringo, George has always been my favorite Beatle. It was only after I started playing ukulele that I learned how much of a ukulele fanatic George was. So it gives me great pleasure to learn his songs on my ukulele and share them with you. If you think you recognize the song that I'm playing, send me a message or drop me an email. If you're right, I'll give you a shout out on the podcast and send you a Tell Me About Your Bike limited edition sticker. You can email me at tellmeaboutyourbike@gmail.com. If this podcast brings value to your life, then please consider supporting Tell Me About Your Bike on Patreon. Your donations will help me pay for Buzzsprout for hosting my podcast. You can find the Patreon link in the show notes. I'll give a shout out to anyone who donates, and I'll send an exclusive Tell Me About Your Bike sticker to all my patrons. I host Tell Me About Your Bike with Buzzsprout. When I was setting up my podcast, I needed to find a website that made it as easy as possible to host my podcast. So if you're in the market for a podcasting platform, check out Buzzsprout. If you're wondering what I looked like when I was a skinny kid on my first oversized road bike, then check out Tell Me About Your Bike on Instagram and Facebook. My mom just scanned some old Kodachrome slides of me as a kid on various bikes, and I'll be sharing them on Throwback Thursdays. If you've got a story to tell about the meaning of life, the universe, and bicycling, drop me a line at tellmeaboutyourbike@gmail.com. Let's meet up, or let's make a phone call, let's go for a spin, and maybe make some memories, and we'll record a podcast together. So, keep the rubber side down, and keep on rolling. Cheers, y'all. This podcast, copyright Rambling Ukulele Productions 2020, all rights reserved.